The base is dropped on a Thursday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, hopefully Jarrett Smith at some point this morning as he's preparing to head into 92.9 the game to take care of some work. Lots of stuff, lots of probably deep thoughts today. It's one of those kind of days. Not a ton of news that has broken in recent days, although it's only 9 o'clock, so things will happen today as they generally do. Joe Boss has already taken this into an overreaction Thursday and hits our first topic. With Barco out, Miggy gone, we won't score 20 goals this year, John. That's your overreaction Thursday from our buddy Joe. Ezequiel Barco injured. He's out of the Argentine U20 squad for the South American Championships. That's all we know. There have already been questions about, well, what about season-ending injury lists? And what about surgeries? And what about how many months is he going to be out? Look, nobody knows. So it is turning into an overreaction Thursday with that. I don't think you're going to get anything official until he comes back to Atlanta. He's checked out by the doctors here. The medical staff comes up with the plan for treatment, and you go from there. There's a report from TYC in Argentina that it is a patellar tendon injury. Now, is that a rupture? Is that a tear? Is it a strain? We don't know. That's the thing, is nobody knows. This could be short-term injury that would take him out of that tournament. This could be long-term. Nobody knows. So, don't go into full overreaction Thursday mode just yet. It's going to be a little bit of time until he gets checked out. He did post a sad Instagram story. Not happy about 2019 thus far, Ezequiel Barco. It's awful luck for him, John. I mean, this is a guy who was prepared to go represent his country in, one of the most prestigious youth tournaments in the world and represent Atlanta United in that, which would have been a huge coup for the club. Injury takes him out of it.
And I have been kind of perusing the timeline and seeing it has been an overreaction Wednesday/Thursday. So we go from a wall pass to an overreaction in the same day, and now we're carrying over with overreaction today. And it was set up to be a good run of feathers in Ezequiel Barco's cap. But to your point, reminder across the board, we don't know a lot more than we know, to speak English very goodly this early in the show. Just wait until everything is examined back here, then think about what can go on going forward.
It's not even so much that. It's not even so much having to preach to people to slow your roll. It's more just about the logistics. I mean, he is under contract to Atlanta United. He was on national team duty. Of course, the national team has doctors and a medical staff. But nothing is going to be official in terms of how long he's out, any of that, until he is checked out by his club's medical staff. This is how this works.
Correct.
So
yep.
Anything before that happens is pure speculation. And that's the part that you have to slow down on because nobody knows yet. I mean, the Argentine medical staff can't predict how long he's going to be out for his club. They have nothing to do with that. They're basically looking at it and they say, he's out for this tournament. He's not going to be able to play in this tournament. And that's it. And now it's down to the club to look at the next steps.
Yeah, that's it. Bottom line. This is what the deal is until he's examined back here in Atlanta. So you can read everything and anything that is posted by any source and every source and file it away. Sit there and go, okay, yeah, that's what they're saying. But until he comes back here and is examined fully, we don't know. Bottom line.
It's not about what people are saying. Nobody knows. Like that's the thing to understand here, and this is where we have to be very clear. Any speculation at this point that's out there, there's nothing to base it on because the only report from a very credible source that is out there right now from the Argentine camp is from TYC. And they didn't say anything about how long he'd be out or what it was. They just said what they're hearing the injury is. It's a patellar tendon injury. That could be anything. That could be strain, tear, rupture, all kinds of different things. Nobody knows yet. So anything beyond that, it's a guessing game. And the biggest part of that is, look, the club is going to make those decisions. His employer is going to make those decisions on what's next. He hasn't been checked out by his club's medical staff yet. So give it time to play out. Training camp opens in, a little more than a week. You're going to get updates, but logistically, there are no updates right now because the medical staff hasn't checked him out yet.
And obviously, everyone's going to be keeping an eye on that particular timetable. So, literally, that's where we are with Ezequiel Barco. And I know that it lit up our timeline yesterday, continues to light it up this morning. So it's a number one topic that is going to be open-ended for a little while.
Yeah, there's not a lot here. And, people are already going all the way down into season-ending injury lists and all these types of things. I think it is way too early to do that. I think trying to figure out differences between young designated players and season-ending injury lists and everything that's going on is too much. I don't think this affects Miguel Almirón's possible sale, transfer. I don't think it has anything to do with it, because you're not going to keep Miguel here if he wants to go because of an injury to somebody else when the market is right for it. If the market's not right for the deal, it doesn't happen. If the market's right, it happens. I don't think a Barco injury that right now, again, you don't know if it's a month, you don't know if it's 3 months, you don't know if it's 6 months, you don't know if it's 9 months. No idea. No idea. And if you're talking about season-ending injury lists, that is the full season. That would be, you're not going to have him play for you through MLS Cup, period. You can't take him off that list. This is not a temporary list. A season-ending injury list, and I know people are trying to read into the rules and regulations and look for things. One, I don't think this has ever happened like this before. Two, you're looking for something here that, unless you know he's out through, you're talking the beginning of November. That's it. That's the only way you can put him on a season-ending injury list. That's a big stretch. If there's any chance he's going to come back, you're going to keep him in a situation where you can play him this year. The season-ending injury list is not like a typical disabled list where you can pull him off. Once you put him there, he's out for the season. If he does get healthy, he could play for Atlanta United too, but that's it. And that's not what you want from an Ezequiel Barco. So I think there is a whole lot of speculation going on right now that is way too early, just because you don't know what the actual injury is in terms of timeout. People are trying to read into Barco's Instagram story post. Well, I believe it was 2019 and crying emojis. He wanted to play for Argentina. That's as big as it gets, right? You want to play for your country in a national champ or in a continental championship. He's sad he's not going to get a chance to do that. That doesn't mean he's out for a year. that means he's sad about not playing in this tournament. I don't think anybody knows just yet. So slow down. I don't think this is going to affect Almirón at all. Now, could it affect... Okay, we'll play a little bit of speculation here. If he's going to be out for a while, could it affect the team looking at a loan situation to bring somebody in for the first half of the season until the transfer window opens? Sure, it could. You could look at that. That would make sense. But I don't think it's going to affect a sale that could be a $30 million sale. You're not going to say, no, we're going to pass that up and take our chances here. I don't see that happening. And I think it just goes back to the trying to bend and twist the rules to allow 4 designated players. And I just don't see any way that's going to happen.
And You know, for me, you're looking at an opportunity for Atlanta United involving a player and a transfer that is something that the player has wanted, and you don't want to stand in the way of that event. And I've seen a bunch of different combinations and permutations, and the bottom line for me where that's concerned is you're still going to try to do right by that player with the transfer. You're not going to sit there because of a possible injury situation and go, nope, you don't want to do that, because then as a front office you're going against your word and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's two separate things when you're looking at Ezequiel Barco and you're looking at Miguel Almiron. So just continue to stay the course, because once again, there's a lot more that we don't know, but at the same time, where Almiron is concerned, it's something that has been worked on for the last little while, and it's a known desire of the athlete. So you don't just stop something that has a couple of different impacts for the club and the league and for the player just because of an injury that you don't know the extent of yet.
Yeah, the last part's the most important. You're not going to affect transfer business that is a massive step for your club in the worldwide market, for the league in the worldwide market. You're not going to put a stop to all that because of this injury. Now, you have time to figure out with this injury and this transfer window what might happen as a result of it. You have plenty of time. You're not in any rush here. But I don't think it's going to affect Miguel Almiron at all. Only thing that I could even, if you want to try to find something in it, maybe it sets the bar a little differently in terms of sale price. Maybe you are going to hold that bar a little bit higher and not come down off of the number you want very far at all because of this opportunity. Maybe there's that. But you're not going to play hardball with Miguel Almiron's career. You're not going to play hardball with a game-changing transfer for the league and the club because of an injury to somebody else. It's just not a smart move in general. So biggest thing here, again, is he will get checked out by the team's medical staff. They will figure out the best course of action for treatment, recovery, all of that, and then we'll get an announcement. And that's what it comes down to. It's a shame for Ezequiel Barco, and I think this is being lost in the whole thing. 2019 has been a year that, since the middle of last year, since the Seattle game and Barco's indiscretion off the field that resulted in a suspension, 2019 has been the opportunity for him to bounce back and show his promise and show his quality. And a lot of people have been looking forward to it. This was going to be the start of it. Ezequiel Barco on the South American stage, representing his country, the first MLS player to do so for Argentina, and now an injury has taken that away. This is a young player who's had to deal with a lot of stuff in a little over a year. The saga at Independiente, trying to get out of there, gets it done, comes here, gets hurt, misses the first part of the season, then the off-the-field stuff. Then he has to fight back as a substitute. And I thought he put his head down and put in great shifts and great work as a sub down the stretch. Not his role, not what you bring him in for, not what he is projected to be as a professional. But he did it, and he put that work in. And 2019 was looking like an opportunity for him to shine. And now it's another setback. And it's an injury setback. There's nothing he could do about it. It's sports. So now you have to double down and hope that he can bounce back and prove people wrong again after he did after the first injury last season. So I hate it for Ezequiel Barco. I hate it for him. What he was looking forward to going into 2019 is now completely changed. And we'll have to see how long he's out, what kind of recovery we're talking about, and then how he's going to fit into a team in midstream again. That's not easy for a talented player who, at Independiente, he was the guy. Everything went through him. He came here, and that wasn't the case last year, and he was starting to settle in. Then the suspension. Then he comes and he finds a role, and he makes a role, and he does well with it. But this is a guy you want on the ball. This is a guy you want to be that focal point of an attack. And going into 2019, sure looked like he was going to be one of those key figures. And now he's going to be starting late again due to an injury. Even if it's a short-term injury, he's going to miss part of training camp. He, at a minimum, he's going to miss the preseason. You don't know when he might be ready to play, but it's not going to be from day one. And that's going to hurt him again with a new manager trying to prove himself. It's a shame for Ezequiel Barco, and the bad luck for him does continue. And hopefully this is the last real setback for him, and he can get healthy, get his knee right, and get back into the lineup and show why he was one of the most promising young South American talents coming out of 2017. It's a tough road for him, and we'll see how he can bounce back. And no matter if this is a short-term injury or a long-term injury, it's still a tough road for a young player who is trying to get his feet underneath him and get going. And this will be an opportunity for him to bounce back again.
And I'm hoping that folks are looking at it in that way, that, they don't get bogged down in anything else. Yes, it's been unfortunate events from last year, finds a role, does tremendous work in that role. And knowing what a lot of folks saw in Ezequiel Barco to bring him to Atlanta, I'm looking forward to seeing that next year. I'm looking forward to seeing what year 2 can bring. I'm looking forward to seeing where his game advances and how he can be a part of things going forward, considering what we've seen. And, to your point, he put his head down, was given a role, did tremendous work in that role, and was a great cog in the long-form equation that brought a championship to Atlanta United. So, biggest thing for me is, once again, I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to progress. I'm putting the injury aside for a second, but I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to progress as a player in year 2 here in the roles that he's given as he's getting to learn on the fly, because, maybe a little timeout, you don't know how much, but once again, he's going to hit the ground running, find a role, do your best in it. And I'm looking forward to seeing year 2 in whatever form that takes.
Yeah, let's keep something in mind here. I think the talk about, Ezequiel Barco was great as a substitute. No. Ezequiel Barco was not asked to really do anything as a substitute because the team was playing so well. You didn't have to bring in anybody off the bench to change anything. It was just go give us some energy. It was that. And that's not what you bring in a player for the transfer fee that you paid for Ezequiel Barco. That's not what you're doing with a player like that. That's not what you want to do. Full credit to him to do it, because that's a role that is a workman-like role, not a role for a player like Barco and his talents. He did it. It was helpful. It didn't change anything. It was just energy off the bench, and that was good. What I liked about it from Barco's standpoint was that he accepted it and made the most out of it in those opportunities, because there really wasn't much of one. I mean, games were pretty much decided when he came in. It was just seeing it out and just giving some energy, and that was it. And he worked hard. That's good. That's a good sign for a player like this, that he will be willing to put in that work. There's so many talented playmakers that are not going to put in that type of work. Barco did. Felt very promising going into 2019 for him based off of that hard work that he put in. Now, it's going to start later than it would have for Barco, and we'll just have to see how long he'll be out with a knee injury suffered with Argentina's U20s that takes him out of the South American Championships. We're going to take a break. We'll come back, get into some of your Thursday thoughts after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, Yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, January 3rd. We found Jarrett Smith. He's here. What's up, Jarrett?
Not a lot. I mean, it's
that's an intro.
It's uneventful. I mean, it's we've had more rain this year than Seattle and Portland combined.
It's
so
stupid.
It's just kind of dreary and miserable. Bleh.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm
very much so.
Sick of rain. Let's get to. Yes, me too. Let's get to a question from Tofka TLC. Aside from the earning it discussion, which we can't know, but if Barco is out for at least a few months, before we bring in a player, loan or otherwise, this has to be an opportunity for Andrew Carlton to show he is ready to step up. Otherwise, what are we doing with him? The second part, I will push back on just a little bit about what are we doing with him. Sign him to a professional deal, and he's had opportunities to play with the first team and with the second team. I think it's harsh to say that Atlanta has not done right by him. I would push back on that and disagree with that. Now, the bigger thing here is this is an opportunity, and it's not just for Andrew Carlton. Lagos Kunga fits into this equation as well. Even other Atlanta United 2 players, depending on where you see Barco. And I'll take it all the way back to Nick Alifi's comment last night when all this started to break. You know, imagine you're Frank DeBoer right now, and you're coming to the States, you connect through Atlanta, you're going to the Combine, you're getting your head wrapped around MLS and your team and what you have and what you might need and what you might be looking for at this Combine. And I mean, you're trying to get your head wrapped around a Combine in general for college players because that's a whole foreign concept to you. And then you get the report that, one of your star young players is injured on youth national team duty and who knows how long he's out. That's a lot to process for Frank DeBoer. And I'm sure he had some ideas about what his team would look like without seeing them yet. Nothing written in stone here, but ideas about where he'd like to see Barco play and how he'd like to use him. Well, now you're back to the drawing board. And anytime this happens, that it presents an opportunity. And that could be for Andrew Carlton, that could be for Lagos Kunga, that could be for Breck Shea, that could be for quite a few different people in this setup. John Gallagher, if you look at him back on the wing, that's another option. You have lots of possibilities internally, and players are going to have to jump to take this opportunity and take it head on, because Barco's going to miss some time. At a minimum, he's going to miss time in the preseason. There's going to be opportunities in preseason matches for people to play and impress the new manager, and we'll see who's ready to do that.
No, and that is the point that when there's a gap, somebody's got to be there to fill the gap. Somebody's got to be there to want to fill that gap. And the word in all of this, Jared, is opportunity, and it does present an opportunity for an individual or individuals. And with Atlanta United and their roster, that's a plural more than it is a singular. And okay, so who wants to step up and fill that void?
It's going to be a question for everybody on the roster. We've touched on this already, but I mean, it's going to be trying to figure out, who goes where. It's going to be kind of a scramble, like a bit of a musical chairs. There's 11 chairs. There's more than 11 of y'all. Not as simple as that, because it comes down to, skill and how you fit into the system. But point being, you're going to have to show what you can do in training and in communication. It's going to be interesting, not just for a couple of these guys, but for a lot of them, really. I mean, of all the guys on this team, there's only a few you pencil in, or you put it in pen, what position they are and what their exact role is. Guys can have their position, but their role could be different in a new system. And that's fine. I think you've got a good selection of players who are, even though they're young, they're still very experienced and have that veteran mindset where they can jump in, they can change roles if they need to. And I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. I would also advise, as all this is getting worked out, if preseason kind of looks a little sideways, not to freak out, because preseason looked all sorts of sideways last year. So don't let that determine the fate of the entire 2019 year.
Preseason's preseason. It's not about results in preseason. It's about individual performances. It's about combinations and units on the field. It's not about overall results. And it's going to be about that even less with a new manager who is going to be trying some things and trying to figure out what he has and what he's working with. And he's going to try guys in different spots, and he's going to see what happens there. Shiva tweets at us, 2 players I wanted to see more this year are Barco and Tito. I hope he gets healthy soon, because it looks like our new coach can and may develop him into a very complete player. Wishing him a speedy recovery. Poor Zeke. That's the thing that I think it's easy to lose in this is, this is a kid who, is hungry. This is a kid who wants to show what we saw from him at Independiente and what we saw in flashes from him with Atlanta United last season. He wants to be that guy. And injury, again, is going to make it difficult for him to do that. I feel terrible for him. And I hope that this is a short-term thing and he can bounce back. Because I agree. I think Frank de Boer is a manager who has shown that he values these types of players. And he's going to put him in positions to succeed. I think back to what he did with Christian Eriksen at Ajax. Eriksen was not part of the lineup under Martin Jol. He was, I think, in the first-team squad, but not part of the lineup on a regular basis, and that was one of Frank de Boer's first moves, was to put him into the lineup, and we've seen what he's turned into. And you have to give Frank and Ajax a lot of credit for what Christian Eriksen has turned into. Barco could be that type of guy. There's a few guys in this team who could be. Andrew Carlton is also one of them. And I'm already seeing the questions, and yes, I saw it too. We'll go with William McLaney, who asked the question, do y'all know why Andrew Carlton is currently in Los Angeles? His Instagram story shows him eating dinner with Lee Wynn. Now, he was on the roster for the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup, but that could have been turned in, and that roster could have been from December or November. Who knows? I have no idea. Why is he in L.A.? Why is Tito in Argentina? Why is Remedi in Argentina? Trying to think who else is where. Escobar's been in Argentina. I believe Miguel is in Paraguay. It's the off-season, it's training camp doesn't start till the 14th. So they can be wherever they want to be. And I think it's a big jump to try to find something in that about having dinner with Lee Wynn, or I think Shaft Brewer was there as well. If I'm not mistaken, Shaft Brewer and Carlton have probably been part of national teams before and have spent time together. Okay. Lee Wynn's a teammate of Shaft Brewer. So there you go. I don't know. I think it's a stretch. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions just yet on that. I've seen pictures of these guys all over the place with players from other teams, and when I see Tito with pictures from San Lorenzo, I'm not expecting him to, that means something. That's guys that he's friends with. That's all I would say about it. So I wouldn't read anything into it. It's the off season. You got another 11 days before training camp starts. So guys are going to get their time when they can because it's been a rather short off season. I think they're going to try to take every moment they can from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you win, and when you win the last game of the year, the amount of time that you get to do what you want to do is very, very short. So it's compressed, and you're trying to get in what you can when it comes to free time, and people spend their free time where they want to spend their free time.
Okay, let's jump into this because this rumor, and it sounds like it's merely a rumor for now, and it'll be announced, I think, next week. Our buddy Trains Chewy says, "Am I to take the rumor of Ali Curtis going to Toronto that they are transitioning to a low-budget academy team now? Vanny did say there would be changes to come going forward to their model." No, not at all, because Ali Curtis came to the New York Red Bulls well after they had started the transition to a lower budget team, a lower budget roster team. Let's be fair to Red Bulls because they invest heavily in their academy and their second team. They just don't spend money in the same ways that other clubs do. Ali Curtis was a league executive before he went to the Red Bulls. He got pushed out by Jesse Marsh because Marsh wanted more control in New York, and he got it. I did not see Greg Vanny saying there would be changes to come going forward to their model. I've not seen that. I think it would be foolish for Toronto FC to go down that road in that market, kind of the way it's been for Red Bulls in their market, because Toronto FC is the number 4 team in that market by a pretty substantial margin. And you look at what they've done attendance-wise, and it's good. But the Blue Jays and Maple Leafs own Toronto. And I'd say the Maple Leafs have the greatest potential to own that city on a regular basis. They just haven't been very good, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
The Blue Jays are a huge deal in that market. And right now the Raptors are very hot in Toronto.
Yep.
Kawhi Leonard kind of helps that. And let's not forget about the Argonauts. I know we don't talk CFL, but the Argonauts are a big deal. So if Toronto was to go to that type of style, one, they're nowhere near ready for it because they have such a gap between their academy and their first team. And we saw that with Toronto FC2, and that's why Toronto FC2 dropped down to USL League One, and they're going to go with a younger roster that is more closely aligned with the academy than the first team. So you're nowhere near ready for that yet. Ali Curtis did not bring that idea to the Red Bulls. Red Bull ownership said, we're not spending as much money, deal with it. That's how that went down. So I think it's a big jump to say that, okay, Ali Curtis going here, it means this. Ali Curtis would be replacing Tim Bezpachenko because it looks like Bezpachenko's headed to Columbus. He's from Ohio. I think that signals that Columbus is definitely more aggressive than they've been in the past, and they're going to spend more money because they're going to have to spend some money to get him from Toronto. I mean, guy's under contract in Toronto, so you're going to have to get that. He's not going to go there, I think, to just keep a team afloat. He's going to go there and expect a budget to work with and expect the opportunity to take the Columbus Crew from what they've been to what they can be down the road with new investment and moving into a new stadium down the road and everything that's happening in Columbus. So Bezpachenko's going to that. Toronto has to hire somebody. The best general manager out there in terms of track record is Ali Curtis. He did well in New York. He was a league exec for a long time. He knows this league inside and out. He knows all the different rules and roster machinations and all these things. He can handle all that. So, I mean, Jarrett, I don't see this move as anything about Toronto drastically changing who they are. They might do that because you've got 3 guys who you've tied a lot of money up into, who are all going into the last year of their contract, and 2020 could look very different for Toronto. But I don't think the Ali Curtis hire has anything to do with that. I think it's just a nature of where Toronto is as a club. And personally, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, I think if they went the road of the Red Bulls and went to a lower budget, no major superstar kind of team, it would really hurt them in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think they can do both, though. Like, I think you brought in a really good executive. Good job. I think you'll stick to what you're doing, but I think you could also ask him to come in and say, hey, given what you know and what you've seen with the Red Bulls, can you help us kind of put our academy on a track? Because right now it's not there. It's, the getting to the twos team where they can be competent and, challenge in USL in either division. So I think you can bring him in and say, we're going to keep doing our thing, but we're also going to ask him to kind of look under the hood. And both of those things can be true. You can continue doing what you're doing, but use a new general manager to look at your academy and build it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. There's no reason why it has to be strictly one or the other. I'm with you completely. I think, yeah, you can look at, okay, what did Red Bulls do to develop Tyler Adams? What did they do to develop their second team? What did they do to make this work? Cool. Can you bring that to the table here? Also, here's a transfer budget for you to work with. There's no reason it has to be one or the other. And I think Atlanta's trying to show that. I think Dallas, in some ways, is trying to show that. I mean, if Dallas ends up spending $5 million on Brian Acosta, the Honduran international that they're looking to bring in from Tenerife in Spain, they're showing that, hey, yeah, we're developing players, and yeah, we're investing in youth, but we're also going to spend money when it's the right time and it's the right player. I think that's the way you need to be. I think when you completely cut off one side or the other, you say, we're not going to develop players, we're not going to worry about the academy, or we are only going to go, into the academy, we're only going to develop players, and we're not going to spend any money on transfers, you're just limiting your options and building a good team. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But no, Trains, I don't think it's Toronto transitioning to a low-budget academy team at all, because for me, the move of Toronto FC2 from a true second team, but that skewed very young in terms of USL, to a USL League One team, there's too big of a gap right now. Now, can Ali Curtis help fill that gap but also keep bringing in stars? I think that's probably more of what Toronto's thinking here, other than he's just the best guy out there. I mean, he's the most successful GM that doesn't currently have a job. So seems like a no-brainer kind of hire to me. I don't think it means anything about where they're going. I would honestly think that'd be a bad move for Toronto, because I think they showed that you need some stars to get attention in that market. And if they go out and get the right stars, combined with developing more talent, because they haven't really done that, they'll be in a good spot. And Ali Curtis could be the one to do that. I'm really interested on the Bezpachenko to Columbus side of it, because I think that could be part of Columbus's transformation from being a second-tier team to a top-tier team. I really do. I'm intrigued to see what's going on in the crew with the Haslams and how much they're going to spend, and the new stadium, and now a new GM, and how aggressive they're going to be. That's what I'm kind of waiting to see. Let's take a break. We'll be back. More Thursday Thoughts after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Umpolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, January 3rd edition, Thursday Thoughts edition. Share your thoughts with us on Twitter at Soccer Down here. Oh, lots of thoughts. All the thoughts. Chris Kilroy. Hey, guys, so let's play out a hypothetical. If Barco has a long-term knee injury as a designated player before the season begins, how does that impact our ability to fill those slots? Is it within the rules for us to have Joseph, Pitti, and Miggy with Barco on the IR? I don't think so, but I don't think this has ever happened, and we're all guessing at this point. The biggest issue with this is what I want to stress that we started with. You're not going to change your strategy on Miguel Almirón's possible transfer because of a knee injury to Barco. That's not fair to Almirón. That's not a smart move in terms of the club's overall future, the league's overall future in the transfer market. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. Is it possible to make this happen? Maybe. It's unclear, and again, this has never happened, and as we always talk about when things come up, MLS can change rules and tweak things and do things to make it suit their own interests. You know, there is a season-ending injury list, and when you look at it, you are off the roster. So it would be essentially the same as if you loan a player out. They're not on your roster. They don't have to fill an international slot. They don't have to fill a designated player slot. But that season-ending injury list, you're out the whole season. You're not coming off of it. You're out for the entire season once you go on it. So, I mean, think back to last year. I believe Sal Zizzo ended up on that list, and they took a little bit of time to put him on that list because you have to be absolutely sure that, yes, this player will not factor in for the rest of the current season. That's a big step to make when it's in July. That's a really big step to make when it's January because you're ruling him out from your first team for the entire calendar year. And I would think that there are some pretty heavy qualifications for this, so teams can't use it as a way to stockpile a player or stash a player or anything like that. Again, it's a lot of speculation right now. The most important thing to me is it would be somewhat foolish to change your transfer strategy on a different player because of this injury when the other player in Miguel Almirón has made it clear that he does want to go to Europe. If the right offer is made, I think he goes. I don't think that changes. The only thing I could possibly see is maybe there's a little less wiggle room for teams who are going to try to lowball Atlanta. Maybe they're like, you know what? No, we're going to wait because of this. Maybe that's what happens. But I don't think you say we're not transferring Miguel Almirón because of this injury. First off, you have to see how long the injury is going to be. And if you're going to rule him out for the entire season, you're talking about a 10, 11-month injury. That's a bad one, and I don't know if that's the case yet. Nobody knows. So the conversation's good. I would just say slow the speculation a little bit on all of it. I just don't know if there's any way to really predict where this is going to go until he's checked out by the team's medical staff.
And there was a question that came up overnight that I thought was a pretty good question from Brad Smith. Did you guys see this one?
No.
I would love to hear your top 5 performers this season outside of Joseph and Miguel.
Top 5 performers from the 2018 season for Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Taking Joseph and Miguel out of it, so your top 3 or your top 5 after those?
Top 5 after those.
Okay, top 5 after those. This is off the top of my head. Julian Gressel, in no particular order just yet. Julian Gressel, for sure. Michael Parkhurst, for sure. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, for sure.
Gazan?
Yeah, I'd probably go Lorenowitz and Gazan would be my others. And a lot of it is down to those guys were consistently available and performed at a high level. It's not knocking Escobar had some injuries, or Nagbe who had some injuries, or Remedi who came in midseason. It's more of, top 5 important players to the team. The 5 that I listed, Gressel, Parkhurst, LGP, Gazan, and Lorenowitz, played a lot of minutes and were critical to this team going forward. I really do think it was a much more of a team effort than I think it gets credit for, because it's easy when you have Joseph doing what he did and you have Miguel, who is the superstar that he is, to focus on those two. But if you go down to number 7 out of the most important players in this team, and I would probably put, based off their 2018 season, maybe put Brad there. He didn't have to do as much because of the guys in front of him. That helps. And I don't think you win MLS Cup without Brad Gazan. So there were a lot of important players, but that would be my other 5 after the main 2 with Joseph and Miguel.
Yeah, I was right there with you with those. And Nagbe for me would have been 5B. But no, to your point, those 5 were my 5.
Yeah. Jarrett, what about you?
Yeah, I think those 5, but the guys just, if for no other reason, they're the ones that were healthy. They're the ones that were on the field all the time. And that does play a factor in it. Now, if you want to take that out of the equation and say, well, guys who beyond that, who can get in that conversation, despite all the injuries this year, every time Tito Villalba got on the field, he was a problem.
Yes.
The only game that comes to mind where he wasn't was the first leg of the Eastern Conference semis in New York, and I'm not sure if he was 100% healthy in that game anyway, and he just didn't look like himself. But anytime he got on the field when he was not, banged up with an injury, Tito was a problem. And, our favorite talking point at the station for a while was the in MLS Cup where Tito got the ball down the right side at the end of the game. When he launched that ball, he was either going to kill someone in the stands, which he may have that night. We don't know. I didn't see the corner bag. No. Or he was going to put it in the roof of the net, and the roof of the stadium was going to collapse as he did so. But I think Tito is in that conversation for a guy that, even though he didn't play in every game and dealt with injuries, when he got on the field, Tito reminded everybody why he came here on a DP contract.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I put the other 5 there because of the fact that they didn't miss time more than anything.
That's completely fair.
Yeah, that's really the biggest reason I would go with that. But overall importance, like outside of just 2018, just importance to the squad, yeah, Tito's very, very high on that list. Let's take a break. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 1 after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, Yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, January 3rd edition of the show. We've talked a lot about Ezequiel Barco's knee injury, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. Won't know any prognosis until he is checked out by the Atlanta United medical team, and as soon as that becomes available, we will let you know if you don't see it first, because I'm sure it will be very public, because there's a lot of interest in this. This is a big player who is injured at an awful time for him and for the team, and we'll just have to see how severe of an injury it is. I'm going to take a little bit of exception with our buddy Josh Eisenberg. He's coming at me about what I said earlier about Carlton being in Los Angeles. He said, come on, Longshore. Everyone else you mentioned is back home. Carlton isn't. Now we're just waiting for Lakers courtside. Look, a couple things. I think the Lakers are the Galaxy buddies, so I guess maybe he'd have to go to a Clippers game with LAFC. I don't know that for sure. But, yeah, Villalba, Remedi, Escobar, everybody who is not in Atlanta is at home. So that means Carlton can't leave Atlanta because he lives here? It's a little bit of a reach. I think we're trying to find things that aren't necessarily there. Having dinner with other professional athletes doesn't mean anything other than having dinner with other professional athletes. Something else comes out, then it's a different story. But right now, I think it's a big-time guessing game because, look, there are opportunities for Andrew Carlton in 2019 here, especially if Barco is injured. For however long Barco's injured, that's a huge opportunity for Andrew Carlton. And you don't hope for a teammate to be injured in any situation like this. You never hope for that. But when it happens, if you're not thinking, "Hey, here's my shot," you're not a true professional. I mean, that's just a fact. And how many times have we seen it, Jarrett, in other sports where a guy gets hurt unexpectedly, and it creates an opportunity for somebody who takes it and absolutely runs with it, and it causes headaches down the road because when the other player gets healthy, what are you going to do? Because this guy's taking the most of his opportunity and run with it. That's what I would assume after the news broke and after, maybe you feel bad for Ezequiel and what's going on here. That should have been what popped into Andrew Carlton's head and Lagos Kunga and the rest of these guys because, hey, that's minutes on the field that you could be taking if you perform well.
I mean, everyone's going to have a shot. Like we talked about last segment. I mean, you got guys who are going to be coming into this trying to figure out, what they can be and what role they can fill with a new manager, with a new team. There's a lot of question about that. And Barco was going this. I mean, this sucks for Barco because he's going to miss out on a chance to prove himself, while everyone else is. And Carlton's going to get this chance. Tito's going to be looking at the same kind of situation to prove himself on the wing. Despite nobody wants to hear this, Breck Shea's going to look at it and say, I'm going to try and prove that I can be a guy in this rotation.
100%.
And depending on, who is training from the second team, do you have a John Gallagher and a Lagos Kunga who come up and who ask, hey, for your consideration for a guy to make an 18 every now and then, especially in the preseason. These guys are going to be looking at opportunities. So, any chance you get an opportunity, you don't want to see anybody go down. But when you get an opportunity, you take it and you go for it 100%. Just don't be crazy about it and don't do anything dumb.
That's the thing about this with Frank de Boer coming in anyway, is you have the potential for not a completely clean slate, but a fresh perspective. So guys who, for whatever reason, managers have opinions. Managers are not completely, objective with everything. Managers have favorites. Managers have guys that they trust and guys that they like and guys that they're going to see in a different light than a different manager. That's human nature. So guys who maybe felt like, for whatever reason, Tata Martino liked to play somebody else instead of me, they should be looking at this opportunity as, hey, this is clean slate. This is an opportunity to show what I can do here. And that's, for me, that's a guy like Gallagher. It's a guy like Kunga. Not to say they didn't get opportunities. It's just now it's wide open, especially with an injury to Barco. It's wide open. And it creates this opportunity to take those minutes. And, we talked about it before. What would the lineup potentially look like with Barco, with Pity Martinez, if that deal gets done, with Joseph Martinez, with Tito Villalba? What could it look like? Well, now you're taking one part of that attacking quartet out, and that creates an opportunity. Does that mean that if Pity's the guy, does he slide inside and you have a left wing spot open? Okay. Does it mean you want to keep Pity on the wing and it keeps a number 10 spot open? Okay. All are possible. And we just have to see how it plays out. But it's opportunity. But just what I would say, Josh, is I think at times we jump to conclusions when we see a picture and we try to read a whole lot of things into it. It honestly could have been Carlton doing some off-season training in Los Angeles and having dinner with other fellow professionals afterwards. It honestly could have been as innocuous as that. So I would not be trying to find something in it. I think now is an opportunity for Andrew Carlton to show what he can do in Atlanta, and we'll see if he takes it, because the door is slightly ajar for him right now, and we'll see if he kicks it down. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Hour number 2 just around the corner. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, January 3rd edition. As Percy Herrera just tweeted at us, Pobre Barquito. You know, it's sad that Ezequiel Barco has had awful luck with this injury on Argentine U20 national team duty. Knee injury takes him out of the South American Championships. We'll have to wait and see what the long-term prognosis is. Shiva asked about, does he come back to Atlanta sooner than required? I think absolutely, because he's been replaced in the squad. So he has, no more business there with Argentina's U20s. He might hang around for just a little bit if there's any, rehab or whatever, depending on what their initial prognosis is. But, he's due to report now to Atlanta January 14th. And we'll see, what the team doctors say. He might come early to get evaluated by the team doctors, as Shiva asks. Easily could happen. We don't know. But you're not going to get an official prognosis or an official update until that happens. Think back to Joseph Martinez being injured with the Venezuelan national team, and they said, it'd be 3 weeks or something, and it ended up being closer to 3 months. Because it's different teams and it's different situations, and they're looking at things differently. I mean, a national team medical staff is not looking at the investment that a club has in a player. They're just looking at the short term, it could be this. Whereas a club who's invested millions of dollars in a player is going to be looking at it, we're going to protect our investment and be smart here. We're not going to rush anything. We're going to be very careful. So we'll see what happens with Barquito. But it's awful luck with him. Herrera also asks on Twitter about the injured reserve list and all that. Let's go into that real quick. And again, MLS could see things very differently than the way we're reading them, because it's MLS and it's their rules and regulations, and they can do what they want with them. But there is a season-ending injury list, and that would take a player off of a roster. That would open up, in Barco's case, the designated player slot. If I'm reading it correctly, it would open up the international slot as well. Now, there's a little bit of confusion, questions about a season-ending injury replacement player, which is a very specific term, and it's all in caps. I don't think you have to go down that road. I think teams that would be going down that road are teams that it's not a designated player. It's a player that is on your salary cap, and you don't have cap space to replace that player. So you have to go with the season-ending injury replacement player designation that has a $250,000 salary cap on it. I think that is more about cap relief than the injured list. The way I read it was the injured list is the injured list. And if you put a player on it, they're out for the entire season. They can't play for your first team in that season at all once you put them on that list. And that's it. And it does take them off of the roster. Now, a designated player is a different conversation altogether. We don't know what kind of cap room Atlanta United has. That would come into this. Barco is a young designated player, so he's not a huge cap hit. So you would think that, okay, if you were to bring in another designated player, if Barco is out for an entire year, that's going to be more of a cap hit. Do you have the money to do that? Okay, that's one question. And other than that, that's really it. I don't think the season-ending injury replacement player, I don't think that affects it. I might be wrong, and I'm sure Paul Tenorio is going to be getting these questions, and I just don't know if there's a precedent. That's the thing, is I don't think there's a case to look at to say that, yeah, this is how it went down. The way I read it, there's the season-ending injury list, which is separate from the season-ending injury replacement player section. And I don't think one necessarily has to be the other. I think the injury replacement player is if you have to do that because of your cap space. And I think because Barco's a designated player, you know, if you went to replace him with another young designated player, done. It's just like for like. If it's a regular designated player who doesn't have the young designated player cap hit, maybe it's a different conversation. But I think the only conversation comes up about the cap space, not this season-ending injury replacement player section. It's complicated. I don't think there's a precedent. I don't think this has happened before, and it's very early to be speculating on this. So I would say first to wait till he gets to Atlanta and gets checked out. This could be a month. This could be a couple months injury. This could be 6 months injury. But none of those are season-ending injuries. You know, to be a true season-ending injury here, you're talking about 10, 11 months. That'd be a very significant knee injury. Could that have happened? Yeah, we don't know yet. But I think we're also jumping to that conclusion and trying to find rules and things and machinations to get around it when we don't even know yet. I mean, he could be out for a couple months, and that's it. So let's stay tuned on it and keep an eye on Paul Tenorio, because I'm sure the questions are going to come up about this section of the rules and regulations. I don't think it's ever happened like this before, not this early in a season. I can't ever remember this happening to a designated player who was injured in the preseason or pre-preseason, and you're trying to figure out, well, can you add another designated player to your roster? I don't think there is a precedent for this as of yet.
Sounds like what the National Hockey League does with their LTIR designation, the long-term injury relief. And in those cases, it applies both to player replacement and to the cap figure. You can petition for cap relief.
One thing I would significantly caution against is trying to find other leagues that do these things and trying to base what MLS is going to do off of that. Because
True.
That's like applying monopoly rules to the game of sorry. It doesn't translate. So I would not even try to go there, because there's no telling how MLS would deal with this. Nathan Pugh has a good question. Will the Argentine Federation owe Atlanta any money for salary if Barco is out for an extended time? I believe so. It's not a huge amount. I mean, it's not something that's going to affect, Atlanta United being able to operate or not. But when players are injured on international duty, clubs are compensated for lost time. And again, we'll have to see how long this could be. And I don't know the differences between a youth national team situation and a full national team. I know there were players who were compensated, or clubs who were compensated for injuries around the World Cup. FIFA posted that. So it would go through that process. There would be, basically like insurance payments to the club for this, but we don't know how much, or, that those payments don't become allocation money and all that side of it, because then I think FIFA's head would be spinning, my head would be spinning, nobody would understand anything, and we'd all be throwing our cards in the air yelling about stuff, because I would have no idea how to make that translation of an insurance payment to allocation money, and then, I'd probably just bang my head against the wall for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a monetary path that just sounds frustrating and mind-blowing at the same time.
Yeah, I don't want to know. I want nothing to do with it. Let's get into a couple other things. We talked about the Bezpachenko, Ali Curtis, Columbus, Toronto, swapping general managers in different ways and making things happen. Miami is up to some hiring in their front office, it sounds like, Paul Tenorio is reporting that Kurt Schmid, Galaxy Director of Personnel and Scouting, Siki Schmid's son, and Nikki Budalic, the former Orlando City General Manager, are both headed to Miami's front office to join Paul McDonough. Jarrett, we talked about this a little bit. This, for Miami to start fleshing out their front office at this stage, is a good sign, I think, for what they're trying to do. And Schmid's a guy who, before he was with the Galaxy, was with Seattle during Siggy's whole time there. He knows the league inside and out, that's for sure. And Budalic, coming off of a general manager role in Orlando, also knows the league. McDonough knows the league. You've got three guys who know this league and know the domestic player pool very, very well, and it looks like that'll be the brain trust in Miami.
It does, and I mean, it's about that time, y'all, where Miami's starting to make more of these high profile, but it's not the word I'm looking for, visible hires, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Making more of these hires that are very visible about, okay, this is really happening, y'all. I mean, we went through this phase in Atlanta. You went through this phase with every team where as it's getting off the ground, it's you're seeing kind of the construction come together, and it's starting to look more and more like a team and less like a theoretical object.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this group's knowledge of the league. What my question would be is, what is their knowledge of the international market and where is their level of expertise? I mean, you look at Kurt Schmid, and in Seattle, he did, I don't know how much he oversaw in Seattle. I don't know his exact role there. But you saw South American players come in. In Los Angeles, as a director of scouting, he started doing that in late 17. So going into 18, what did he have his hands on in acquisitions for the Galaxy in 18? I don't think Kurt Schmid went out and found Zlatan Ibrahimovic. That's kind of a different situation. So I don't know what his direct impact was. Budalic, I mean, there's differing opinions on him out of Orlando. There are people who were happy to see him go. There are people who felt like he didn't have the full support of ownership and didn't have the resources to work with. So we'll have to see. But Miami making these moves now, what I'm interested in is, does this mean you're going to see a Miami club that starts building its roster now, that starts making some signings in this window, or at a minimum prepares for signings in the summer window? And you look at situations where you see guys, sign with Inter Miami in the summer of 2019 and get loaned out or stay with the clubs they're at through the rest of the 2019 calendar year before coming to Miami for preseason in 2020. It seems like if you're building out your front office now, you're preparing to make those moves maybe earlier than most teams have as expansion teams. Atlanta didn't make any major moves until the winter window right ahead of preseason. They did bring in Chris McCann, Kenwin Jones in the summer. They did sign Tito Villalba between windows, but it wasn't going to take effect until the 2017 calendar year. So, John, I mean, to me, this seems like a situation for Miami where they're starting to build, maybe even a little earlier than most teams have.
Yeah, and with the domestic knowledge or experience that Budalic and Schmidt have and Paul McDonough, for me, it rotates over to the international piece. And that's where I'm going to be keeping an eye on Miami and how they're going to bring in personnel to sit there and say, okay, these guys know MLS, they know its machinations, they know the league itself, they've seen the league, and they've been an integral part of it or an active part of it with their respective teams. But how does the international piece get filled? And so for me, that's where I'm looking at things coming up. And then with all of these hires happening now, they're getting a jump start on things. And we know that Miami's going to be as serious can be when it comes to wanting to put that product out there on the field immediately, if not sooner, from day one of organization where they're going to be regarded as a serious player in MLS, not just with stadia and what they want to do in Miami, but with wins and losses and all that. So I'm looking at the international piece. It's like, okay, you've got your MLS guys here. How are you going to bring in guys who know the international game because you want to represent yourself as an international brand and an international franchise? So let me see the international guys and see how they fill in the pieces.
We'll hit the air horn real quick. Toronto has made it official. No Not everything's an We've talked about this many times. Ali Curtis, new general manager for Toronto FC. I don't think that's an Tim Bezbachenko has departed his role as senior vice president, soccer operations, and general manager to pursue another opportunity. This is from the Toronto press release. Bill Manning, Toronto FC president, says Ali brings great MLS experience, having been a player and executive in the league office and as New York Red Bulls sporting director. His work with the Red Bulls saw the club become Supporter Shield winners while strengthening their academy and the pathway for youth players to become professionals. We needed to move quickly and decisively, and we are excited to get right to work with Ali, beginning with next week's draft. With this exciting change comes the departure of a valued executive and friend, but we understand Tim's desire to pursue a new challenge. On behalf of everyone at Toronto FC, we want to thank Tim for his contributions to the club over the past 5 years. Tim played a big part in helping TFC win multiple trophies, and we wish Tim, Annie, and their family all the best in the future. So there you go. For the MLS narrative, folks, yes, Trains, talking to you, the comment about winning Supporter Shield while strengthening their academy and the pathway for youth players to become professionals, hey, that goes along with what you were saying. I don't think it's to the extreme that you were painting it. I don't think Toronto decides not to spend money on salary and transfer fees once their 3 superstars are gone. I do think they definitely needed to strengthen the academy and that pathway. And Curtis should be a guy to help them do that based off his past experience. But I think Toronto is one kind of like Atlanta where they can find that balance between the two, and you have an ownership group that is willing to do it. For me, the biggest difference between the Toronto situation and the Red Bull situation where they decided to go down this road, and again, they went down that road before Ali Curtis got there. It wasn't Curtis who took them down that road. That was a Red Bull ownership, Red Bull soccer group ownership, Red Bull football decision to not go out and sign more Thierry Henrys and Rafa Marquez's and Tim Cahill's. I think the difference is the Red Bulls made that decision partially because of NYCFC coming into the market and going down the road they wanted to go down with David Villa, with Andrea Pirlo, with Frank Lampard. And the Red Bulls said, we're not going to spend the same way with a team across town doing the same thing. We're going to go down a different road. Toronto doesn't have that situation. So I think they'd be foolish to decide not to spend anymore. I don't think they'd be nearly as successful. I think they need to find that balance, and we'll see if Curtis helps them develop that academy and that pathway a little bit better. We're going to take a break, come back, one more segment before Felipe Cardenas joins us at 10:30. And with Felipe, we'll talk about Barco, we'll talk about all of the stuff out of South America when it comes to Atlanta United, and we'll talk a little Frank de Boer as well. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, Do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, January 3rd. It's a Thursday thoughts kind of edition of the show. We've had lots of thoughts about season-ending injury lists and season-ending injury replacement players and salary caps and knee injuries and all kinds of good fun stuff on a Thursday morning to open January. Some news we just talked about in the last segment, Ali Curtis going to Toronto, Tim Bezpachenko headed to Columbus. Dominoes are continuing to fall. Austin FC, remember them? Anthony Precourt's new thing down in Austin, Texas. It should be launching in 2021. They announced today that Andy Loughnane, who was previously Columbus's president of business operations, will oversee Austin FC's front office operations, and he will be the club president. He will report to Anthony Precourt. So Loughnane is following Precourt from Columbus to Austin to oversee everything there as president of the club. I think that creates the space for Bezpachenko to oversee what's going on in Columbus, and we'll see if he is in, I guess, a slightly bigger role. I mean, every club's different in how you structure president, general manager, director of soccer operations. The roles and responsibilities differ, I think, everywhere. But it sounds like, John, with Loughnane going to Austin, that creates a bigger leadership opportunity than Bezpachenko had in Toronto, and now he'll have that in Columbus.
And you get to kind of mold something from almost scratch with a new ownership group coming in, new ideas. Okay, you're going home, A. You get to build something from home, B. And you get to have more responsibility than you probably had in your old job. So I can definitely understand the desire for Tim Bezpachenko to want to go home and to build something because of A, the challenge that's there, and B, the idea of going home to do it. And going home has a lot of pull for a lot of different things. And for me, looking at what the idea was for Bezpachenko to go home and build something and get them to the next level of MLS as they're turning the corner with the Haslams and getting all of the new stadia and becoming even larger in the footprint with the facility and what they're turning Mopfrey into and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of different things at play for Bezpachenko and for Crew and for the Haslams, and it's a unique set of challenges, and I completely get it.
One question that has come up over the break, A.J. Cochran, who was with ATL UTD2, center back, I think he led the team in minutes. If he didn't, he was very close, wore the captain's armband on occasion. His option was not picked up in Atlanta. He did sign with the Phoenix Rising in USL, and that's a really good fit for AJ. Not an underrated player, and a lot of people were surprised by his option not being picked up. I think this shows to me, or at least the way I took it, was that the second team for Atlanta United is about a place where players who have potential to move up to the first team are going to be housed. And I think as the academy fleshes out and you see more signings like Castro, like Conway, like Joseph Samuel, like Kisiadu, young players who, have ties to the local scene or have ties to your academy, as they get signed more and more, you're going to see less players like an A.J. Cochran, like a Devin Sandoval, who were very important in year one, but long-term future is not in Atlanta. Cochran is in a good spot in Phoenix with a team that, one, is trying to get into MLS, and two, a team that is very good. So I think it's a good fit for him. All the best to AJ. He was always very willing to talk to us, to talk to the media. I thought he was a great representative of the club. And, Jarrett, you probably talked to him a good bit more than I did after games and stuff. I thought AJ was a great guy for this back line to build around. I thought Miles Robinson learned a lot from playing next to AJ a lot.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. I think he was. I think he helped out with Robinson a lot. He was always very talkative to us, and that can kind of get, I think, lost in the shuffle of, he talked. Well, it wasn't just that he talked, to the media. Like, it's great when guys give us, sound clips. That's great. But I thought he put on a really good front for the organization, that you're building a new entity in Atlanta United too. And AJ did a really good job of being accessible, very, very open. And when he was pushed into the fray at times to be kind of the mouthpiece for the team when media would come calling, he was very polite and a very good ambassador for a young club. And, man, when it comes to off-the-field stuff, I can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, it's an important part of it. I thought AJ really made the most of the opportunity. He's a guy that in the right situation, to me, can play in Major League Soccer. And we'll see if maybe that opportunity is with Phoenix. But I thought he came here and maximized every opportunity that was given to him and is probably in a better situation now. He's with an independent club that is spending money, and hopefully AJ seeing some of that. And he can make the most of the opportunities out there as well. And the signing of Tyler Ruthven probably had a hand in this as well. And a local guy who developed in Atlanta. I don't think you were going to see two veteran center backs in this team going forward, because you're going to have young guys like Kendall Edwards and George Campbell who have to play. So you're not going to see Ruthven and Cochran eat up the minutes. A veteran is good. I think they decided to go with the local talent in Ruthven as opposed to Cochran, but Cochran's landed on his feet in a good way. So all the best to him as he gets out to Phoenix and they get started with a Western Conference season in USL Championship. That Western Conference is going to be wild this year with everything going on there. Swope Park Rangers, Real Monarchs, we know how good they can be. On your independent club side, Eric Winalda in Las Vegas will be Vegas after dark in a different way, and it'll be something you'll definitely want to keep an eye on as Winalda, uses his scouting network to bring in talent for Vegas. Winalda and Chalice are very different but similar in some ways. They're both very bold in the decisions that they make, and they're both very intelligent soccer people. And Chalice maybe had some issues with saying things and doing things that he probably should not have, and saw some suspensions. I don't think we'll see that with Eric, but I think Eric will be very entertaining for the Las Vegas Lights. So they remain on the list on late night Saturday night, ESPN Plus must-see. The Las Vegas Lights are definitely going to be there under Eric Winalda, but we'll be keeping an eye on Phoenix as well and our buddy A.J. Cochran. So we're going to take a break. We're going to get Felipe Cardenas on the line. We'll get back to South American conversation and some updates on Barco and the rest after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, January 3rd. Got some thoughts that we want to see what Felipe Cardenas is thinking from The Athletic. What's up, Felipe? How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year and good morning, everybody.
Happy New Year, amigo.
Right?
Not a Happy New Year to start for our buddy Ezequiel Barco, though. Injured with Argentina's U20s ahead of the South American Championships. We don't really have a ton of details just yet, but what were you reading out of the Argentine media as the news broke yesterday?
Well, I think a couple things are important to note. You know, considering where we are, it happened yesterday, and the first thing that I want to touch on is quickly, like, let's talk about the injury. So I think what's really interesting about the way that TYC Sports out of Argentina reported the injury was, and I was laughing about it last night, and I was talking to Joe Patrick about it as well. Is that apparently, if you read the article in Spanish, the reporter definitely got a report from the medical staff, the Argentine, the under 20 medical staff, and he was probably just bombarded with medical terminology and science, and chose to, for safety, probably just copy paste what he was given from the medical staff. So in Spanish, the injury is written, and it's like, if you're not a arthroscopic surgeon, it's pretty difficult to understand exactly what happened, and that's probably on purpose at this point, for just really to protect the player and try to leave as much speculation out of the process right now. So it was interesting to read a very highly technical description of the injury in Spanish as well. And probably reported that just to be safe. He didn't want to get it wrong. He just repeated exactly what the medical staff said. So what I did with that is, I went through my process of translating and corroborating that type of injury. And yeah, it's at this point, all we know is that it's a patellar tendon injury. The severity of the injury really is unknown at this point. And through a spokesperson with the club, with Atlanta United, I know they're probably working on getting something out, getting an update out, hopefully today, so that we know exactly the extent of the injury. But it is obviously probably going to be a serious injury. The anything knee related is always very scary for a player, and I think we know that. Just that type of injury, just the minimum is probably, if it is a rupture or if it is a tear, at the bare minimum, Barco would be out 4 to 6 months, possibly more. Surgery is also something that would be evaluated depending on how bad the injury is. So, like, right now, it's very much wait and see. So that's the injury. I thought another very important aspect of the report, and not just through TYC. I went through other media outlets in Argentina, and they all described Ezequiel Barco as the star of the team. I mean, that to me was something very interesting. They described Ezequiel Barco as the under-20 national team star of the team, and this is and this being a very big blow to the Argentina's under-20 squad, as they head into the South American Championship in Chile. The South American Championships, the under-20s are always, it is a hotly contested tournament in South America. I think we all know that the teams that are participating, they're sending their very best young players and with hopes of, qualifying and just getting to the next step that would be an under-20 World Cup. So while this isn't news that for anyone here listening to the show that Ezequiel Barco is a very good player, I think his perception in MLS and especially even the perception here at home in Atlanta, but especially in MLS and whether he has delivered and whether he's really as good as his price tag and what his potential is and did the hype train fall off its rails last year. You go to Argentina and they still see him as a prodigy, as a player that has an immense future with the national team, and a guy that when he steps on the field for the under-20s, the spotlight is on him. So that was interesting for me to read that they described him as the star of the team and really a huge blow for the under-20s.
The other news that came across, and, we can ask you if you got your pony for Christmas or whatever happened in the stocking a little later. But the other news that came across where Atlanta United was concerned is Frank de Boer, who made his way through Hartsfield-Jackson International yesterday on his way down to Orlando. Early thoughts on de Boer?
Yeah. I think what has been said, I think we've all covered it and it's a big time hire. And it's I think it shows that Atlanta United once again, back-to-back huge hires at the manager level. Now, I think what's interesting, and it was really, my lead the day that he was announced in my article for The Athletic is that, similar to Tata Martino, de Boer is arriving in Atlanta looking for stability, looking for a new opportunity to prove himself as a coach. Because this is very much a business, just like, other top sports in this country and around the world of, what have you done for me lately? And so we know that he's coming from two previous jobs that did not go well at all. And similar to Tata Martino, he arrived in Atlanta after leaving behind, the sour taste of his experience as the national team manager of Argentina after losing back-to-back Copa America finals. So I think that's really interesting that Atlanta United, even though they are very much the team in North America right now that everyone's talking about, they are the MLS champion. They are really delivering on a lot of what they've said as far as what their business model is. And it's and before they hired de Boer, Atlanta United was the premier job available. At the same time, we're still at this point where MLS is still attracting the coaches that are looking for another opportunity. You're not going to get a Pep Guardiola coming to MLS because he needs a new challenge quite yet. And the same with Guillermo Barros Escoloto, that was announced yesterday as LA Galaxy coach. He left Boca Juniors, like he mutually agreed to leave, but it was after essentially failing to deliver on what was probably number one on his deliverables list. So we're still at that point at MLS, but on the flip side, you're getting quality coaches. You're getting coaches with some experience that this league has never seen before. So I think with de Boer, and I think you guys have covered it throughout the week, this isn't so much like, what will the style of play be like, and will he run, will he prefer the Dutch 4-3-3? What formation is he going to run with? I really think that isn't that's not what we should focus on just yet. It's really what does he see in the players that he has? That is the big story for preseason. and moving in very quickly to CONCACAF Champions League is how he perceives and evaluates the current roster, and who he thinks should be playing and starting. The formations will come naturally. Like you always win games with tactics, but you need to have the right pieces in place. And I think that'll be very interesting to see if, he mentioned it, and Carlos Bocanegra mentioned it as well, that when De Boer interviewed, he had a very, in-depth assessment of each player that, according to Carlos Bocanegra, aligned with the club's evaluation of the current roster. So that could be either I don't want this player, or I think this player could be better here, or this player needs to be better, needs to play better than he did last year, etc. So all these things that are up in the air that are very common when a new coach and a new staff comes in.
And looking at not just DeBoer, but all the hirings, GPS getting hired out in LA, looking at what's happened this season, this offseason, what's been the coaching hire around the league that you've looked at and been kind of the most, I guess, optimistic about for a team either trying to rebuild or keep things going?
Well, if we step away from the obvious, the progression from Tata Martino to Frank de Boer and just, Atlanta United trying to maintain its current level as MLS champions, I think for me, it's Mateus Almeida in San Jose. I think that's still the one that surprised me the most. I think it's a club that really needed something like that type of hire, presence on the sideline, someone that the players really will respect. And they needed a boost in culture. I think San Jose Earthquakes just, they were slowly becoming, part of that MLS 1.0 crowd that just couldn't get over the hump, that were kind of lingering in the past and becoming one of those MLS teams that were okay just making the playoffs. They probably won't say that, but I think the results and the way they spend and that was starting to look like the picture that was being painted, kind of like mired in mediocrity and finishing last. I think when you're in that level, when you've hit rock bottom, really you need to make a big change. And I think credit to San Jose and the front office of really going after Mateus Almeida and probably stealing him from other clubs, not just in MLS but internationally. And I've heard interviews where he's been very open about turning down a lot of money, to coach in the Middle East and probably in China as well, because he believed in the project in San Jose and he likes what MLS offers, which is something interesting that foreign coaches have all said, that they like the organization, the way it's structured. And, I think that this notion that foreign coaches come in and are just like, they don't know where to go and where to look and MLS is complicated. Obviously, Tata Martino proved that that's not the case. And I think it's quite the opposite. They see MLS as, I want to go play, or I want to, manage and be part of a league that, it knows what it's doing and is organized and it allows me to just coach. So that'll be big. I think that's huge. And I think just, now we know that, down just, a few miles down in Los Angeles, Guillermo Bartos Escaloto is now there, and it provides some nice, River Boca storylines when San Jose and the LA Galaxy get together, and just two top, managers from Argentina, with what we can see right now, two, similar styles, similar networks. Even they're going to be looking for young players in Argentina. Almeida has a network in Mexico as well. So I think we should see San Jose, perform and upgrade from, drastically from last season.
Let's talk about that market and those networks a little bit, because it seems like MLS is really continuing to not follow the roadmap that Atlanta's created, but follow, I think, the aggressiveness that Atlanta has went into the South American market with. I mean, San Jose brought in Argentine winger Cristian Espinoza yesterday. No big shock with the Almeida connection. Orlando City went to Ecuador, brings in Jackson Mendez, who I've heard lots of really good things about. heard him compared to Diego Chara, which is a pretty good comparison when you talk about success in MLS. And then for me, that combined with the awards in El País, I believe this was the first time that MLS players and managers were part of that voting, at least getting into being finalists. The perception of Major League Soccer in South America, has it dramatically changed in the last 2 years because of what Atlanta United's done?
Well, I think it's definitely changing, and yes, Atlanta United and their success and their approach to success has a lot to do with it. I still think there are a lot of naysayers and a lot of why would you go to MLS? That's still very much prevalent in South America from both fans and media. We saw that. I saw several interviews with Gonzalo Pity Martinez after he won Copa Libertadores, where I literally, a reporter from Argentina asked him, "Why would you go to America?" And because they see him as a worldly talent, and apparently scouts in Europe had a different take on Pity Martinez, but in Argentina they've seen him grow from his time at Huracan and now at River Plate, and so they see this gem, and they're like, they still don't understand why a player like that wouldn't go to Europe and would come to the U.S. So I think, they're not really seeing. It's been a slow process to understand that MLS now offers players like Pity Martinez and other South Americans this platform to come and essentially, one, earn a good living, earn a decent living. And number one, which is the one big change, is that they will improve. Okay, they will get better, which is what the perception in Argentina and South America today is still MLS. The quality isn't there. So how can you come here and get better? Well, that's the big change. In MLS, you can come here and get better. And you in European eyes are on this league. And if you have a front office that is aggressive enough and believes in selling players and moving them on to Europe for profit, and then doing the same year after year, well, then you have an opportunity to, as a player, to really reach your goals, and you can be ambitious and still play in the top leagues in the world. The notion that other teams are following in the footsteps of Atlanta United, I think we all expected that, and what Atlanta did is that they wanted to be good right away, and there's only one way to do that. There is literally only one way to do that, and that's by spending money and bringing in top talent, and talent that can make a difference in the league, and bring in talent that maybe this league hasn't seen before. That's what Miguel Almiron is. That's what he represented. He was essentially unknown. You can talk about, what he did at Lanús and all that. Yeah, sure. But we all understand now that he became a star playing for Atlanta because he brought a skill set that was unseen and unknown in this league before he arrived. There wasn't speed like his before. And so that type of talent that you can bring in and say, wow, this guy's a game changer. He's a playmaker that is difficult to defend. That's what South America is littered with. And so you have to have a sharp scouting network that can identify players. And I know Atlanta United and some of these other teams like San Jose that are and Dallas at the time that were looking at South America probably had some pretty top scouts identifying young players that could come in and do that. And so you talk about the Ecuadorian midfielder, that type of just like rugged, tough tackling, technical midfielder. Again, they're all over South America, and if MLS teams want to strengthen their backbone tactically and have a presence in the midfield and tackle and possess, then South America is the place to go. Now, today, Tim Vickery, who covers soccer in South America, in particular in Brazil, wrote about how MLS is kind of in that in the same group as China, which is an interesting take, where they can essentially lure talent from South America with big money and big paychecks and all this. I don't know if that's necessarily the case because Not every team in MLS is doing that. And I don't think everyone is coming, players are coming to MLS because they're after the type of money that you're going to get in China or the Middle East. But it is an interesting point of view that MLS is maybe in South America, they're seeing MLS as like, well, hold on, like this team, this league is actually enticing our talent with money and funds and transfer fees that essentially right now, South American teams need to sell. They need to sell players because they need the money. So I think all of those things are going to come in to play in the next few years, and you should see, a significant upgrade in talent throughout, the MLS teams that want to do that want to search and purchase players out of South America.
Felipe, we'll continue to explore this as we get into the silly season that has honestly just begun. I think there's going to be a lot of more moves involving South American players coming to MLS with the managers who are in place and just the changing landscape of it. That Vickery quote's really interesting because I think he's missing the point that while young players are coming to the United States, just like young players went to China, Oscar Romero is a prime example of that. I think the other part of MLS compared to China or the Middle East that is different is the competition and the level of competition. And that's been the number one thing that I think people are taking back to South America is, things that Franco Escobar and Eric Remedi both said when they did interviews down there about this is a good league. This is a tough league. This is not an easy league to come in and play well in. You combine that with Miguel Almiron potentially going to Europe for a large sum of money, and I think that perception of MLS equal to China and the Middle East in terms of players coming here changes dramatically in the next year.
I totally agree, and it has to. I think in the Middle East, they're still attracting players like Wesley Sneijder, a great player, when he was playing at his peak, played for Real Madrid and just one of my favorite Dutch players of the last 10, 20 years as well. But he's in the Middle East because that's where he can play right now. And
he
I
would
think
get
if
lit up in MLS right now.
Of course, he would come here and they can't hang physically, and I think that's what like you mentioned, Escobar, LGP, Remedi, when they were asked, leading up to the playoffs. When the international press was here, like, how do you compare? I talked about this league. Like, what is it like? Is it difficult? Like, what's the style of play? They immediately went to the physical, demands that this league, puts on every single player. Now, someone like, Pirlo at the time when he was playing, I agree with him too. Like he came and he said, the physical demands are kind of too much. It's like, it's more physical than it is technical. And that's the next evolution of MLS. How can you change the profile of the player, the profile of the league from one that still has remnants, a little bit of the remnants of, run first, play later. And I think that's when you start to see young players from South America that are their development from very young has always been technical first, run later. You need to know your first touch has to be pristine if you're even going to get out of the academy, if you're even going to get a sniff of a first team. You need to know how to play on the wing. You need to understand tactics. You need to be brave enough to identify a 1v1 situation and go for it. And that's rare in our American soccer landscape. But if more players come and bring that, then the league just in general gets better, and that the technical side of the game in America automatically is what the naysayers and the outside eyes from South America and Europe start to see, like, okay, yeah, this league is better. So still a little bit to go, but I think we can see the steps are being taken, and definitely there's progress being made.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch this evolution, and we'll keep talking about it as we go. Felipe, thanks for the time. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Yeah. Happy New Year to you as well.
Take our final break, and we will be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, Thursday thoughts for January 3rd. Got a couple more thoughts on the Twitters to get into. Trains had a funny question. Who will win the Twins battle when the Galaxy roll in? Do the coaches have like ID tags to make sure they're the real one? Looking forward to that game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If you don't know, Frank DeBoer has a twin brother in Ronald DeBoer, and Guillermo Barros Schelotto is known as the twin because he has a twin brother. I don't know if this is going to turn into a Twins Magic type of deal with the Bella twins where Guillermo gets sent to the stands and then the other twin appears and you don't know which one is the real manager of the team. I don't know if DeBoer is going to use this tactic. Yeah. The Twins
shape
battle.
of a bucket of water.
What?
We have an update on Ezequiel Barco from the team, from Atlanta United.
Okay, hold on. We'll hit the air horn. Ezequiel Barco update from Jarrett Smith.
Atlanta United announced today midfielder Ezequiel Barco will miss approximately 3 to 4 weeks with right knee tendonitis.
That's a little different.
Will return to Atlanta to rehab prior to the start of the 2019 season.
Okay, that is a very, very different conversation than we've had for the first 2 hours of the show. So, always fun when that happens. But yeah,
better conversation,
much better conversation. Tendonitis is something you have to worry about, and you have to worry about long term. Like, okay, what's causing it? What's the problem here? How do we deal with it? And that will probably be part of these next steps. Preliminary, hey, could be longer than that, but we're not talking a season-ending injury type of situation at all. So I think you can throw that stuff out to the side now, and it is just a matter of how long it takes him to get back up to speed, and he's going to miss a good bit of the preseason. Then how long is it going to take him to get his fitness? The good thing is he has been training with Argentina's U20s, so it's not like he was out after the season ended, did nothing, then gets injured, so he's starting from zero. He will have a little bit of a base of fitness, so it might not take him quite as long to get up to full speed, but it's a setback for sure, but it's nowhere near the setback that people were speculating about, and we were all worried about when the news broke yesterday out of Argentina.
What else is on the board as we head careening toward the end of the show?
We have stuff. Paul Rutledge asked, do you think it's possible Almiron is sold to a club that will loan him back to us until the end of the CONCACAF Champions League? definitely possible. I mean, we see it with Christian Pulisic, but the problem is from a roster standpoint, unless another deal for an incoming player is not going to happen until the summer, you can't do it. And the rumors are out there about Pity Martinez, and nothing's been announced yet by anybody official, but Martinez has mentioned Atlanta now in interviews. He is leaving River Plate, destination unknown as of yet. So you're going to have to figure that out. You're not going to be able to have a situation where you have Barco, Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron, and Pity Martinez on the roster together. And with Barco's injury being short-term, you can't put him on an injured reserve list of any kind that would take him off of the roster to open up that spot. So, yes, it's possible Almiron would be sold and loaned back, as we saw with Christian Pulisic. From an MLS roster compliance standpoint, it's highly unlikely.
And so we'll keep an eye on roster stuff as well. And the timeline for those of us who are watching on the Twitters, I think Tafka TLC says it quite appropriately. We are truly a soccer city.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're truly a soccer city when, you walk around now and, okay, this news breaks out of Argentina, and this is a big conversation about, well, how long is Barco going to be out? What could this mean? What other moves could happen? Just like when the Breck Shea stuff started, it's like, oh, wow, how is Breck Shea going to fit into this? What's he going to do? Where's he going to play? Is he going to take minutes from this guy? How's this going to go down? I mean, we're talking about assigning somewhat for depth a rotation player in Breck Shea in this team. And, man, it was a big topic of conversation all the way across the board. It's honestly getting to that point like you see with the Falcons, and you start talking about, well, who's the backup, defensive tackle that can come in and have an impact? What about this draft pick? What's he going to do? They need to increase the depth here. Those types of conversations that are very in-depth, they're happening about Atlanta United now. It's very cool. I mean, it's exciting, and I will always remember having a conversation with Glenn Davis about this, and he's like, man, you guys are so lucky in Atlanta because we don't get to have these conversations in Houston. The interest is not the same. And there's just not as much to talk about in the offseason. Here, it's been nonstop. And it will continue to be because there are still lots of sagas for, Atlanta United Twitter and social media to freak out about between now and the start of CONCACAF Champions League. So it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. It's a good thing that the interest is there. It's a good thing that the conversation is there. And that's part of why this team is as big of a deal as it is in this market.
And when you have Falcons fans wondering if the owner of Atlanta United and the Atlanta Falcons can take any profits that might have occurred during Atlanta United's season and then apply them to an immediate buyout of Dan Quinn.
Yeah, when you start talking about soccer money being used to pay off football things, it's like, wow, okay. Yeah, this has really crossed over into a big, big deal. I don't think there is anything else on the Twitter timeline that is now relevant with the news on Barco. There was a lot of conversation about Barco, and thanks for having it with us. I mean, we're all figuring it out as we go, as we're trying to figure out, well, what could this mean? What are the possibilities? And I thought we went through all the different possibilities pretty well, as best as we could at that point. And now we know it's 3 to 4 weeks. That puts you, at this frame, you're looking at the beginning of February, second week of February as a possibility for him to be back. It makes it very difficult for him to play into the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16 with Herediano, but it's not impossible. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Barco once training gets underway for Atlanta United. But he'll be heading back to Atlanta to get checked out and start the rehabilitation process. And definitely dodged a bullet. Could have been a lot worse. And I thought what Felipe said is something I want to close with about how Barco was seen in the Argentine team. He was seen as a key for this U20 team. And Argentina's youth national teams have a tradition of success. And, I mean, there are some who look at Argentina winning the first Youth World Cup that Diego Maradona captained that team, which ended up becoming the U20s. I think it was the U19s at that time when they did the tournament in 79 in Japan. But there are people who look back at that team and that title as much as they do the World Cups that Argentina has won. So this is a big deal. And for Barco to be looked at as the man for that team and a huge setback for the team with his injury, that says a lot about how respected he is in Argentina. And hopefully he gets an opportunity in 2019 to gain that same level of respect here in Atlanta and here in the United States. And luckily the injury is not going to be too much of an impediment for him to do that and have a big year with Atlanta United in 2019. That's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow with a Friday flashback edition of Soccer Down Here, 9 a.m. on the SDH app, which is available on Android and iOS. Also on soccerdownhere.net and on Spreaker. However you listen to us, we greatly appreciate it. Thanks to our friends at ESPN Coastal, at the XL Sports Network in Central Georgia, at Barn Burner in Canada as well. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for listening. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata, y'all.